All right, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Toon podcast. We are the biggest, best, and only dedicated Newcastle United podcast in the Southern Hemisphere. Joining me today, I've got Keegan, who is going to help me review the dog shit of a match against Forest. That was the Boxing Day bash in the Premier League for us at St James's Park. How are you doing, mate? How was your Christmas?
It was all right, mate. It was a bit wet down here. I think most of the eastern side of Australia's copped a hammering over the last 3 days, and we were no different. So, yeah, it rained Christmas Eve, pretty much rained most of Christmas Day as well, and we kind of missed it here in Geelong, at least yesterday. We didn't cop it, but I know Melbourne copped it, and you guys in Queensland copped it pretty bad as well. But, yeah, no, it was a rough 3 days, but not as rough as the last kind of 12 hours. It's been a pretty shit night, and putting together kids' monkey bars and stuff all day today. The day didn't get much better. So hopefully we can just let it all out now and be done with it.
Yeah, so for those who've been living under a rock for the last 12 hours or so, you will know that Newcastle lost 3-1 at home to Nottingham Forest, with a Chris Wood hat-trick being probably the main talking point from their point of view. It was a 12:30 kickoff in the UK, which was 10:30 for myself and 11:30 p.m. For Keegan. I stayed up to watch the game, and I was in anticipation of us putting in a stellar performance off the back of a dodgy performance down in Luton, where we were just outplayed. But again, away form versus home form, on paper, you would have thought this would have been almost a foregone conclusion for how good we've been this calendar year so far. You reckon that?
Yeah, I still sort of answered the game with trepidation. I mean, it's the numbers don't lie. Like, this was our 10th game in 30 days with an injury list that was pretty much over 10 out of our 25 sort of listed players for that time. So, like, nothing. It's the toughest league in the world. Nothing's given. So, I had a lot of trepidation. I still thought we'd win. Don't get me wrong, but I did have a bit of trepidation with it all because we've broke. I think the last sort of 2 or 3 games have broken us, and our energy bar, I think Bobby and Jack spoke about energy bars last week. Our energy bar's on red and it's flashing at the moment, and we can't get out. Like, we can't get out of it until maybe the next month. I mean, we've got Liverpool, then the Nissan shift workers after that, and then hopefully things kind of settle down a little bit and we can get sort of back to a game a week, where last year we managed it really well. Like, we could pretty much pick our same 11 pretty much picked itself. The only talking points really was Isak going to start or was Wilson going to start? Like, that was pretty much the last 3 months of the year. So we've seen when we can get a consistency of 11 but sort of time between games, we're a really good side. But unfortunately, at the moment, we're not getting any of that. So we are where we are. And, yeah, I thought we'd win, but I thought I was a bit sort of scared of what was going to happen.
Well, my pre-match prediction was a 3-1 win with Chris Wood scoring. Didn't have it going the other way, that's for sure. Kind of jinxed it on that. So, I'll reserve any comment or future predictions for the next few games also. But we're going to jump straight into the lineups. Us being the home team, we'll get us in first. As expected in goal, we've got Dubravka, Tripshot, Botman and Byrne making up the back line, with Bruno, Longstaff and Miley in the middle. Amaron, Gordon and Isak up top. Of all available players fit, is that the 11 you would go for?
Well, yeah, it depends on the day and the lead up to it. I mean, I don't think if everyone was at full health, I think most people would probably pick Livramento over Byrne, and that was certainly the tone coming in, maybe before the game, but definitely after the game and after the result. That was a hot pot of stuff if you wanted to bloody get a spoon and have a drink out of that. But we don't know. So we have to understand that they've got all these sports scientists and all these data boffins who analyze everything. The players wear GPSs every day. They know their work rate, the intensity, their high-speed running and everything. Like, everything is tracked. So unless I hear otherwise, I'll assume that Livramento was getting close to his sort of red bar dropping out, and he just needed a recharge because that's really the only thing that why you drop him. I mean, him and Trippier as our fullbacks have been unreal when they've been fit enough to perform their duties to a elite standard of which they have been. But yeah, Burn, I'm not sure if he's just gone back to the tried and tested. I mean, if you look at that sort of apart from Dubravka, but the back four is pretty much the back four that got us fourth last year. So unless he's just gone back to it, but even then, Craig, like Botman and Burn, yes, they're back, but they couldn't have done much training, could they?
Nah, no way. Not a chance. The fact that Botman was replaced in this game, he came on early-ish in the Luton game, so because of Lascelles' injury, I think he was only half an hour in that one. So he probably was only maybe get half an hour's game rather than an hour. He's definitely not fully fit. I think that's pretty much a given. But at this minute in time, we've got the walking wounded out there, and they are performing, as far as I'm aware, to the best of their ability. But due to, like I said, the nature of the Premier League being the toughest league in the world, if you're not 100%, this league will bite you on the arse and then some.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to sort of note as well, when you look at the subs, we're back to having 5 fullbacks, potentially 6 fullbacks on the bench. So what are we going to do? There's 9 players on the bench, a goalkeeper and 6 fullbacks. Like, we're still not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. So, I mean, we've got what we've got, but I just think all these players, like even Longstaff, I think he's underdone. I think Almiron and Gordon especially are absolutely underdone. They're cooked. Isak's underdone, but there's no one else because Wilson was getting injured. Like, everyone's just either got no energy because of fatigue or haven't got enough training to perform where they need to be because we've had to bring him back early. So, what do you do, mate? Like, you can't do anything.
Not you kind of the intensity of the Premier League around Christmas. And I don't get why there are so many games played around this time of year. And every other league in and around Europe, as far as I'm aware, has a Christmas New Year break. I mean, Harry Kane made a joke but on social media that he was taking photos to his ex-teammates in Spurs and sending his poolside, he's relaxing, he's having Christmas off. He can go and eat whatever crap he wants over a few days because he's then got a good number of days to recover. Whereas at this minute, the players, they're not even training. They're literally going back to a little Benton. They're doing a few little stretches, maybe warming up, then cooling down, then going back home. They don't have the time to get the tactics right. They don't have time to fully train. And it is causing us a number of issues. And I know a lot of people will turn around and says, you can't blame injuries or fatigue for this game right here, which is partially true, but it is still a huge factor in how we play our game. And it's something that when we start getting players back, so the likes of Bonds and Murphy and so on, when that depth is back in, we will start performing as good as we can and have done this season. And they can't come back quick enough. Are you sick of fans using fatigue and injuries as an excuse because of this performance?
No, it's fact, mate. You can't. It's not an excuse. It's just it's pure fact. I mean, you use Wilson, use Murphy, or not Murphy, Gordon and Almiron as an example. Okay, so them two are absolutely not just them, but their positions are imperative to the way that we play and the way we press, right? And they've got to get through a mountain of work every single game. Now, in an ideal world with nearly a full squad of players, as we've seen in the first game, we can rotate Barnes and Murphy, Willock, Joel Linton, Elliot Anderson can play out there as well. We've potentially got seven players who can play in them wing positions. We've got 2 of them fit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, how are you meant to operate effectively? And I think most people would say our pressive and front foot nature is why we win games. We force teams into mistakes close to goal, we pounce and we score. And all the opposition teams will say, well, no, like, we made an error. Yeah, you wouldn't have made that mistake if we didn't put you under pressure. Like, don't sugarcoat it, give us credit for what we've done. But we can't change anyone, Craig. Like, this is the thing. Like, yeah, like, Trippier and Livramento. Yeah, well, who are you going to play? You're going to bring on Dummett, are you? Like, I'm sure most people will say, I'd rather have a 50% Kieran Trippier than Paul Dummett play. Like, and I think that's the way that they've structured their team as well. But you can't not use injuries because it's the facts are there. And all these people, like, we'll probably get into this later, as if to say, oh, well, we wasted our money during the summer. Like, we didn't waste our money during the summer. Like, Livramento's been one of our best players for the season, I reckon. And Howe, well, couldn't do anything about that. Harvey Barnes has got a broken foot. What do you do about that? Like, the only one you could maybe question is Lewis Hall, but they seen it as a chance for a good deal for a player who can have a really long career with us. Like, the deal was there to be made, and they made it. Like, I'm not sure where this sort of hypothesis come, and we'll do another transfer pod, I think, maybe at the start of January. But our FFP numbers compared to those other teams in the top 10 are frightening. And until, like, we're years away, Craig, from getting to where they need to get to. I mean, forget about the top 6 and things like that. And even just their revenue money is crazy. But then when you add in player sales, and then you've got a team like Brighton who's probably sold £300 million worth of players over the last couple of years, and Aston Villa have sold Grealish for £100 million, so they've got a lot of wiggle room. West Ham sold Declan Rice for £100 million; they've got a lot of wiggle room as well. We've sold ASM for £25 million, and we've got no sponsors. Like, we've got to be really selective with who we spend our money on in the transfer windows, and we can't compete with these other teams at the moment in terms of transfers. We've got to really box clever, and I think the club have been very open about that, but we can't do anything about this lineup, mate. Like, it is what it is. Like, you're not going to get – I'm sure if Joel Linton was fit, he would have started. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure if they didn't think Wilson was going to break down, maybe he might have started and Gordon might have played on the wing, but then you sort of take away that flexibility where if Wilson comes on, Gordon can go out to a wing if they need to make a change or something like that. Like, you still need some flexibility in your lineup. So, I mean, what are you meant to do, mate?
Well, to move on to the next one, on the Forest lineup, they actually made some wholesale changes from their last game, which is something we just certainly don't have a luxury to do at the minute, which is obviously a crying shame. And then new manager, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the manager's name because I will get it wrong.
Nuno.
We'll just call him the previous Wolves and Spurs manager.
Nuno. Just call him Nuno.
Nuno, there we go, Nuno. So yeah, they had Turner in goal, Sangare, Gibbs-White, Wood, Hudson-Odoi, Niakate, Alanga, Danilo, Montiel, Murillo, and Aina, I think that's how it's pronounced, is their starting 11. Now, obviously, there is one name that will be familiar with every single Newcastle player on there over the last 2 years or so, and that is Kiwi Chris Wood. Now, when we signed him, it'll be, 2 years ago this January, I think it was?
Yeah.
Coming up? Yeah. For 25 million quid from Burnley. It was deemed to be a bit of a laughing stock in terms of how much we paid for him. But at the time, we had no other option. We had to pay that money to trigger his release clause. And he was probably one of the only strikers who was willing to come given our predicament at the time. Yes, it never fully worked out for him at Newcastle. He only scored 5 goals and I think 39 appearances, which isn't striker quality, but he was never given the full 90 minutes, is what Isak and Wilson was ever going to get. Chris Wood, coming back to St James's Park as a Forest player, was always going to haunt me, wasn't it? It was inevitable, in my opinion. Hence why I have backed up the score.
Yeah. I'm not sure what he was paying to be a goal scorer, but you would have made good money if you put on it. So gamble responsibly.
Well, yeah, don't. Let's not talk about gambling on that one, especially Tonali's in the stand somewhere.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's one of those things where ex-players always come back to bite you in some way, shape, or form, but not one person anticipated him scoring a hat-trick. That's for sure. And we'll get a little bit of detail of the game, but I don't want to go too much into what the goals were conceded or anything like that, because to be honest, they were just overly depressing. One thing I will ask you though is, did you think it was a penalty for Newcastle, or do you think Isak initiated the contact and realised the ball had maybe ran away from him, then decided to hit the deck? But on slow motion, and I don't like using slow motion as a way of monitoring or re-refereeing the game because it doesn't give real-time response. But there is a delay from when the contact is made from when he then hits the deck. What were your thoughts on the pen at first?
Yeah, it was interesting. I watched it again before we jumped on here, and the replays were pretty inconclusive. But I think no pen. I think he's realised the ball was hit a bit too heavy for him. What's the worst that happens? Like, he's sort of, you might get a yellow card, you might not, but sometimes you got to do this stuff to try and generate something, because like we were pretty flat the whole game again, and I think that's still a fatigue kind of issue. We weren't our sort of bubbly selves like we are at home, and sometimes you got to generate something. But yeah, I honestly didn't think it was a penalty. I thought he kind of made the most of it, but the ref gave it and they checked it, and I think there was enough there to not overturn it. So he kind of got away with it.
Yeah, there was no obvious error by the ref. There was contact. It's whether it was.
It's more of a subjective thing, isn't it? Yeah. The ref has obviously thought in real time. He had a good look at it. Yeah, I think there was enough, and yeah, you would have been on the blower to the people in the booth, the VAR boffins as well. But yeah, he's happy with what he's seeing.
Sir Les and ex-Macam Darren Bent were in the studio for the halftime analysis for us. They both agreed Isak done the right thing by the contact and then going to ground, and they both thought it was a penalty as well. If an ex-Macam thinks it's going to be a penalty forward, then I'm going to take it all day long.
Still, that's a striker. They're strikers.
They're strikers.
Of course, they still look after each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing I just want to touch on here. So when we scored that first goal, previous times earlier in the season where we had fully recharged batteries or anything, it would literally be pedal to the floor, let's go for the kill, foot on throat type thing, and go for a quick second goal. Is it purely fatigue that stopped us from doing that right now when we're trying to see games out rather than going for that instant kill?
I think so, because we've got it. And I said this, what game? I can't remember what game it was. Might have been the Bournemouth game, the 3-0. I said we need to score 2 before the hour mark to cover ourselves for the end of the game, because we can't do it. So yesterday, Craig, like I said, it was a bit of a boring day with the cricket and flicking between the basketball all day. But so with our 10 games in 30 days, we'd conceded 14 goals in these 10 games. So that's all games. That's just not just the league, it's the League Cup and Champions League games and everything like that. We've conceded 14 goals. 10 of them have come after an hour. So there's a clear issue there that we can't. And then people will throw the old, he's got no plan B and he doesn't have a plan B. Well, how do you work on plan B when, one, you don't have enough blokes to fit on the training pitch anyway, but you can't actually train because, like you said, it's play, recover, play, recover, play, recover. You can't actually work on new things and new systems and structures and things like that to change up at the moment. Like, I'm sure in a month's time, we'll probably get a couple of bodies in January. Maybe by the end of January, we might have 4 or 5 new players in the squad, whether they're guys coming back from injury or new players that we've brought in. So, and we're back to 1 a week. So I'll be able to train and we can kind of fix all this stuff up. But just at the moment, you got to cross your fingers and hope. And whether the high line's an issue, but that's the way they know how to play, and that's the way we've played kind of the last couple of years with Eddie. So that we're going to stick with that. But gee, we got done out the back a few times, didn't we?
We did, and that leads on to their equaliser, which came from maybe hesitation from Miggy at the other end, where the one time you want him to shoot, he does decide to pass it, and that then just gives the ball back to Forest. They then go on the counter down our left-hand side. Dan Burn is left for dust, and it wasn't the first time that's happened in this game. So the warning signs were definitely there. And this time they do get the cross across the box. Dubravka's in no man's land, and up steps Chris Wood to tap in from, I think it was 3 or 4 yards out, something like that. And that is pretty much the worst time to concede a goal just before the stroke of half time, especially when I wouldn't say we were dominant in that first half, because we clearly weren't, but we were probably edging it in terms of opportunities and putting keeper under pressure, that type of thing. Yes, they had chances, but I think ours were that little bit better. Going in at 1-1, I was thinking, Eddie's going to give them the usual bollocking, that type of thing. He's going to stick a rocket up the arse and they'll come out all guns blazing. And it just didn't happen. And I think the crowd could sense that from the first whistle in the second half, because that crowd was flat. It tried to get going a little bit in when we had a few chances from Miley. Isak had a shot that dribbled just wide.
The header,
yeah, the header, yeah. There was a few attempts, but nothing which was enough to get the crowd on the feet and start chatting and make St James's the bear pit it can be. And I think that, if anything, has played into Forest's hands. And second goal came, which was again probably against the run of play, but to no surprises. But I don't think anybody expected Chris Wood again to step up again for this one. How did you see Burns' performance in that 60 or so minutes he played? Because he was the one person in the starting lineup which nobody wanted to see there, according to social media.
Yeah, he wasn't great. let's not sugarcoat this, Craig. He wasn't great at all. And even for the first goal, they had a warning sign 5 or so minutes beforehand when Alanga probably should have squared it to Wood.
Yeah.
And he elected to shoot, and Wood it was nearly exactly the same scenario, same side. Wood was right through the middle, sort of begging for it, and he didn't. He took it himself, and he learned the second time. But they come out after half time, they bloody had a shot on target within about a minute, or not less than a minute, straight off the kickoff. Like it wasn't, if the warning sign were there, and normally we do see the first kind of 15 minutes after half time, we really try to assert our dominance on the game and get a stranglehold on it, but it just nothing worked. And like you said, the crowd was flat. I don't know if it's the early kickoff. We're traditionally hopeless on Boxing Day, and the numbers definitely back that up. We are the worst performed side in the Premier League on Boxing Day as well. So, and yeah, early kickoffs, you can't get to the pub, you can't drink as long, like all these things for the fans, at least. Like I would say we, but I don't go to every game. But everything you see on social media, everyone goes to the pub and has a few before a game and wets the whistle, and they're in really good spirits by the time the game kicks off. But when we've got that early kickoff, it always seems flat. Like I don't know why, whether it's the drinking thing and Christmas as well, and whatever it is. But a lot of things kind of conspired against us to be flat and things like that. But yeah, the second goal, it was a great finish. Like let's not do Chris Wood dirty like that. It was a great finish. So, and I think the finish on the second goal actually got him his third goal. We'll probably get to that in a bit. But yeah, the side of Dan Burn with his sort of running back towards our goal should sort of send some shivers down every Newcastle fan's spine when that happens, because we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so that goal came in on the 53rd minute, and we're thinking, oh, Christ, yeah, we've got 2-1 down against Forest, backs against the wall. Do we have what it takes to bring the game back? And 7 minutes later, right on the hour mark, Chris Wood does it again to complete his hat-trick, where he's through one goal. He's pretty much wide open. I think it's Trips that plays him onside.
No, I think it was Livramento.
Livramento, okay, right?
Yeah, on the far side. Yeah.
And he then goes on a cracking little run. He's got 2 or 3 defenders around him. He goes around Dubravka, leaves Dubravka for dust, puts it into the back of net with a well-taken, calm finish, completes his hat-trick at the Gallagher end as well. Something we all hope he would have done for us in the black and white kit, but obviously he's down for Forest. Now, getting on to Dubravka, and this is something that Mark brought up during the game on our private chat. is, do you reckon the defenders are missing Pope's sweeper keeper type play? Because obviously we defend with a high line, and he is obviously our last line of defense, but he plays a lot more forward than what Dubravka does. Dubravka almost likes to hug his goal line. Pope is a lot further forward to the edge of the box and probably reads that danger that little bit better. Given all 3 goals, and I know this is hypothetical, do you think Pope could have been or made the difference to any of those 3 goals?
Oh, no, definitely not the first one. The first one was a bit of a sort of shambles. I think it went through Shah's legs as well on the way through, which sort of that's how it got to Wood. So the second one and the third one, I think they're very similar goal, same size, same everything like that. I think the difference is with the first one, he's kind of chipped Dubravka and
Yeah.
a bit cheeky, great finish. The second one, I think Dubravka was thinking he was going to do it again, and he actually went around him this time and tricked him and left the open net. Now, I don't know how high Pope would be. Like, would he have sort of made the run if Pope was higher? Like, they're all hypotheticals. There's no doubt that Nick Pope is a better goalkeeper than Martin Dubravka. Let's call a spade now. He's a handy number 2, but I mean, is he really? He's not probably someone you want to rely on for 3 or 4 months. Now, the football people have got a very big decision to make, especially in what do we got? Maybe 4 or 5 days' time, with regards to what are we going to do in the transfer window? Are we going to buy a goalkeeper, or are we just going to ride with Dubravka until Pope comes back? Now, he's probably still going to be 3 months, so he could be back in March or something like that. So it's going to be a very, very interesting decision. And I think if we do get a keeper in, I think they'll look to sell Dubravka in January and get what they can for him, and Karius will be the backup for the new guy, and we'll see what happens with Pope. But there's going to be a lot of interesting things happening in January with regards to our team, and where do we rate it, and what do you think? Is it going to be a sugar hit to try and get through to the end of the season, or are we going to sort of bank on our guys coming back to have the impact that they want? But yeah, how do you think? Would you blame Dubravka for any of the goals, or are they defensive mistakes more than sort of a Dubravka mistake? Because I think they're more a defensive mistake myself.
I would agree with that. I think first goal, you're absolutely right. Dubravka was taken out of the picture. There's not a great deal he could have done. Second goal, maybe he could have come off his line a little bit quicker to close the angle down, and possibly the same for the third as well. Again, it's all hypotheticals. I do think Pope obviously would have been out his box a little bit quicker. He is probably the quicker of the 2 keepers off his line as well. And he obviously does read the game that bit better, as mentioned just before. But Dubravka is now coming the wrong side of 35, I believe, just after the new year. His birthday is coming up very shortly. So I do think you're right about the club need to make a big decision on who they're going to have between the sticks from January till the end of the season, maybe, if depending on how Pope's rehabilitation goes. There's been a keeper shoulder injury is probably a lot more detrimental than what it is to an outfield player.
Yeah, 100%.
But, you know, we will see what happens on that one. But yeah, that goal went in on the hour mark, and we didn't really create any further chances after that either. There was a little shot from Miley where we tried to pass it into the bottom corner. The keeper was rooted. I don't think the keeper would have got there if it was on target, but it just sailed past the post. And one thing I want to touch on, I don't know again how much of this you've seen, but every time Wilson was in the box and he was close to any player, he was hitting that deck like he'd been shot by a sniper. He was trying to play for every single penalty he could get. I know he's trying to get where a goal and everything like that, but the way VAR is now, you can't try and con the referee because there's a second set of eyes watching, you know. And he went down for everything. There's one where touch with the keeper, and he went down as if like his leg had been snapped or something like that.
Yeah,
he's then straight trying to win the ball, and that it does show the frustration of the players, which is fair enough. But don't try and cheat your way into getting a goal because that's not who we are. It's not what we or how we operate as a club on the pitch. We're not Bruno Fernandes, for fuck's sake. That man flops around like a dolphin on ice. It's just genuinely really frustrated me in the last 20 minutes or so. But game fizzled out. The final whistle goes. Now, this is quite interesting. As the final whistle goes, the commentary team goes on instantly, and the crowd noise is turned right down. So I couldn't actually tell if there was any boos from the home fans or anything like that. So it'd be interesting for those who were at the game, if you could let me know what the reaction was like at full time, whether there was any boos or whatever. Let me know in the comments down below. That'd be good to know. But the game finishes 3-1. Newcastle slumped to a surprise home defeat, I think, is a fair call. Because again, on paper and on home form, we were probably the favourites to win that, and especially given where Forest are in the league table as well. But 3-1 home defeat was probably the right call based on the performance and how well Forest took their chances.
Yeah, and credit to them. Like we got beat by the better side on the day. Like you can't sit there and make things up and this or that. Like we didn't play well, and we get what we deserved. So that's the same against Luton. We were not very great in that game, and we lost as well, and probably deserved to lose. So we've got Liverpool coming up in a couple of days' time again, and then, like you said, the Nissan shift workers after that. So it's going to be a big, and then hopefully things kind of settle down a little bit. We can start recovering and recharge and things like that. Now, I'm sure most fans at the moment would absolutely wipe that Liverpool game out and wouldn't care if all 4 Mileys started that Liverpool game to make sure everyone was cherry ripe for the Sunderland game, because we haven't had one for, I think it was 7 years or something. So we can't lose to them. Like we can't lose to them at all. So I think have they changed the rules with their replays this year for the FA Cup, or is it they're still
no, there will be a replay if there's a draw, because
Yeah.
they were talking about how fans are ferried to and from the stadium now due to the regulations. So I either said if there is a draw, the same regulations will have at St James's Park.
Yeah, they'll get their buses and things like that as well.
So
yeah,
but that's another preview for another day. But we will go to Anfield probably for our annual loss. It's not a ground we've had much success on over the past few years, albeit that COVID season we should have won when Willock had that goal disallowed because it bounced off his hand when it was off his chest. That still infuriates me. But yeah, Liverpool game, we may touch on that towards the end. But now, social media. It's an absolute shitstorm when Newcastle lose a game. And when you lose a game in the manner that we did against Forest, it is even worse. And I think I may be wrong on this one, but for the first time that I've noticed, but Howe out has been trending on Twitter or X or whatever it wants to be calling itself these days. Now, I am very firmly Eddie in, and I believe everybody else in the podcast is. I'd imagine you are, Keegan. I can't imagine you'd want to see Howe replaced by anyone right now.
No, that's whoever says that. I think Jack said it. Like, give your head a fucking shake. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous to say Eddie Howe out. Like, and if this continues for another 2 or 3 months, I still don't even think it's a conversation. I think he's got the work, he's got the runs on the board, he's built the club. Like, and I am definitely not one to say, oh, look where we were 2 years ago, because I think that's completely irrelevant now. Like, we're a top 6 team now. So you throw that out the window. But let's judge him when he's got a full complement of players to work with and everything like that. Like, it's impossible to judge a manager now based on what our injury list and our schedule has been. So, like I said, we've got 3 games in the next 30 days, maybe 4 if we beat Sunderland or if we have a replay. So let's have a look at the end of January and see what that looks like. And we have got a tough set of fixtures in January, like a really, really tough set. But I'm sure once we get over this sort of Liverpool and Sunderland, I think that the whole week break will feel like an absolute month for the players and the guys that have been putting in every week and things like that. So he can't. I don't even know why you'd say it for, Craig. Like, who could have done any better in these circumstances with the cards that they've been dealt?
No one. Absolutely no one.
Yeah, and don't give me just throw a comment out there. Like, don't give me solution. Like, give me answers as well. So if you want to sack it, well, great. who are you bringing in that's better than him? And if anyone says Jose Mourinho, go and tie a bag of bricks to your feet and jump off a pier, because that is ridiculous. Mate, he was washed 10 years ago, like completely washed 10 years ago. You can't. And don't even give me this wanky nostalgia Bobby Robson shit as well. Like, mate, just because you worked with him, it doesn't mean you've got some bloody affinity with the club and you're in love with the club and stuff like that. Like, mate, who cares?
Yeah. Now, I totally agree. Social media is disgusting. Jose Mourinho is not the man to take us forward. Like I said, 10, 15 years ago, absolutely, where he was probably one of the top 5 managers in world football. Now I wouldn't even put him in the top 20 or anything like that. He's in Serie A for a reason. There's a lot of clubs where his attitude as a manager have just driven him further down the pecking order in terms of clubs that want him as manager. And yes, he's got that affinity with Sir Bobby, and obviously Sir Bobby is local hero, legend, everything like that. But you can't use his excuse as a connection with Sir Bobby for wanting him at the club. I mean, John Carver probably had a better connection with Sir Bobby than what Jose did. And look what happened to him. Yeah, let's get John Carver back in. Because he was the best manager in the world. Remember that comment he made in that almost relegation season?
Yeah.
And genuinely, anybody that is wanting Howe out, go on.
Do you know where Mourinho's next job's going to be? Saudi Arabia.
Saudi. Yeah.
Because everyone knows he's washed. Like, no one wants him. Why would you want someone like him when there's so many good, young, progressive managers coming up in world football? Why would you go back to him for? Like, it's as bad as when Allardyce got his job last year at Leeds. Like, it just makes no sense for anyone. And they got what they deserved, Leeds, for doing it in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at all the young managers that are out there, you've got Graham Potter. Where's he at the minute? Nowhere. Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, they're nowhere to be seen. The only one who has done anything meaningful, yes, Howe had experience on both of those with his Bournemouth job, but he's still a young manager. He's still a progressive manager. He is not by any which way a dinosaur, in which Jose probably falls into that category now. And you'd probably agree with that, Keegan, I'd imagine?
Oh, yeah. And it's not, this isn't a popularity contest or anything like that. Like, this is like the elite of the elite level here. But Eddie's got this relationship with the players that sort of galvanized the whole club and brought them together. Like, I'm sure if you got any other manager in, there would be a big wedge between the players and the coaches then. And all this hard work that has kind of sort of started at the end of Steve Bruce, where the players kind of galvanized themselves together against the whole sort of off-field regime and things like that. And then that's been fostered and harnessed with the new coaching group. And then once the sort of takeover happened as well, it kind of all manifested in together to one big club. And that's what we've got now, is one big club. And if Howe left, that one big club would be smashed to smithereens again.
Yeah, and I remember when we had Serena on, the club photographer, and she basically said Eddie was the breath of fresh air that the club needed. Purely the fact that what he came in and done over a very short period of time was just simply incredible. And I don't think any other manager could even have done that. I think Pep would have struggled as well, because one thing Pep likes is loose purse strings on his wallet. You know, he likes to go out and spend money. Chelsea, they spend money like it's going out of fashion. Arsenal, similar type of thing. But I certainly wouldn't want to swap Howe for Arteta. No chance, not the way that clown carries on. So,
no. How would it's never going to happen. How would Pep go in a team if Pep took over when Eddie took over? I don't think he could have done what Eddie done.
No, I agree. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Because he this is going to sound stupid. He knows what it's like down there. He's spent a lot of his Bournemouth days in the Premier League was in and around the relegation zone, and he knows what it takes and everything like that. And you just hear stories about when Kieran Clark went on loan, and Eddie's ringing him up when he's out on loan, asking how the wife and the kids are and everything like that. Like, he actually genuinely cares about people, and I think that's why not just players love him. Obviously, Serena and all the other staff would love him as well because he, like, hand on heart, he actually cares about you as a person, and I reckon he probably cares about you more as a person than a like a footballer or a staff member or anything like that. And that's a sign of a good manager, and not just in football, in any sport, in any field. If you coach the person first, then you'll get the best out of the player, and that's what he does. Like, he's a people coach, and it doesn't mean he's scared to make the harsh decisions or anything like that. And he'll crack the whip when he has to crack the whip. I've got absolutely no doubt. And I reckon a lot of this would be a bit of a good cop, bad cop with him and Tyndall. I think Eddie would be the bad cop, and he'll roast you and he'll wrap you over the knuckles. And I reckon then Mad Dog will come in and put his arm around you, and Graham Jones will put his arm around you and everything like that, and sort of pick you up again. But I will never, especially at the moment, never understand why anyone would want to get rid of Eddie Howe.
Yeah, nah. I mean, I totally get everyone is entitled to their opinion and obviously frustrated after the run of games and everything like that. But getting rid of Howe now, next few weeks or at the end of the season, would generally be detrimental to the club's long-term development. He is up there with probably the most important person at the club next to Dan Ashworth, as far as I'm concerned. Forget all the players or anything like that. Without Howe, we do not progress as a football club. And I think 99% of the fan base do see that. And I do get a lot of these comments are born out of frustration. But it only takes one numpty on social media to say something, which then is put in a snowball effect. And then everyone gets carried away and jumps on the bandwagon. And I think that is what's starting to piss a lot of people off, myself and yourself included.
Yeah. And you can be critical of the performance because this game was shit. And the Luton game wasn't much worse. It wasn't much better. Like, we've been really bad the last couple of days, but it's far from a sackable offence. Like, you can criticise performance, you can criticise selection, you can talk about Burn and Livramento and everything like that. Even though these guys that work pretty much 7 days a week know a lot more than what any of us will ever know about the players and everything like that. But you can question that. It's fine. Like, it's an opinion business. Like, they've got pundits who get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to have opinions on it and things like that. But to say to get him out is just fucking dumb, mate.
It is. You've literally hit the nail on the head with that one. Fucking dumb is entirely what it is. But you know, the world of social media takes over, and you've just got to look at what the Nufc 360 account tweeted earlier in the season about is it time to start panicking? And then Bruno responded, and social media went into a shitstorm then, but everyone backed Bruno rather than this Twitter account. So it is a very fickle thing. Us as fans, we can be very fickle as well, but the majority of us are level-headed, especially in, I know you just used this analogy before, from where we've come from to where we are now. I genuinely, if Steve Bruce was in the situation now, he would have kept his job. We were in a significantly worse situation under Bruce. We had a lot worse run of games under Bruce, but expectation is so high now, people are almost demanding these results. Would that be a fair assessment?
Not really. Bruce would have got the ask because there's a lot better managers than Steve Bruce out at the moment. Like, so you look at it in totality. Well, if we're going to get rid of this guy, we have to replace him with someone better because there's no point getting rid of him then. So you look at even Forest, they've got rid of Steve Cooper. They've brought in Nuno. Nuno was a better manager than Steve Cooper. He's got the results. He's got him playing really, really well. But so, look, Craig, you could have got the job ahead of Steve Bruce. Like, let's not sugarcoat it here, mate. He was fucking hopeless and no idea. So you can't say Bruce would have stayed because there's Potter would have been here in a heartbeat if Steve Bruce was still here because he's 100 times better than Steve Bruce. But you've got to we knew things were going to turn to shit. Like, not everything is going to be just roses and butterflies all the time. Like, we're going to have tough times. Liverpool went through a whole heap of shit last year. No one
Mhm.
was calling for Jurgen Klopp to be sacked. Man City are in a bit of a run at the moment. No one's saying sack Pep. Because why? Because there's no one better to take over their club at the moment. And we're the same with Eddie Howe. So anyone that says that, I've seen that, Craig. I've seen it on Twitter and stuff. And honestly, it's not even worth responding to. I know Mark loves it. Mark gets stuck right into it. But, mate, I've got enough shit in my life to worry about than these brain-dead morons with no idea about Eddie Howe.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Absolutely agree with that one. Eddie is here for the long time, and I genuinely hope he stays for the foreseeable. Nobody wants to see him go. But I think we will leave it there, apart from one last little thing. I will just grab a quick prediction of you for our visit Anfield at the weekend, mate.
6-0 loss.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 3-0 loss.
Expect the worst. Expect the worst. And if it's any better, you feel good about yourself.
And if you're anything like me, you'd gladly take a loss at Anfield if it means a win at the Stadium of Shite.
Oh, in a heartbeat. I'd snap your hand off now
Exactly.
if they said, right. If they said you win 1-0 at Sunderland but lose 6-0 at Liverpool, I'd snap your hand off.
Yep, totally agree on that one as well. But we will leave it there. We've had a little bit of a rant over the last 10, 15 minutes about knuckleheads on social media who trying to
Pull your
create
head
a storm of teacup. But we will leave it there. Hopefully, you never know, we might get a surprise result at Anfield. And then it's pretty much, I would say, the biggest game of the season in terms of getting the season back on track so far, for the game against those a lot the other side of the water.
One more thing, mate, before we go. If anyone was at the game yesterday and got a program, can you flick us a message on our socials? And if you're willing to part with the program, that would be great because I'd love a copy. There was a double-page spread about the Aussie Mags in the program. And if you look hard enough, there's a real ugly bloke from Geelong who got his photo in there. So I'd love a copy of it. So if you've got a copy and you're willing to part with it, I'll happily pay for postage and everything like that. Just slide into our DMs and let us know. That'd be great.
Yeah, for those who are watching as well, Keegan's Twitter handle is on screen. For those who are listening, it is at KeeganCar30, Car spelled C-A-R-R. So hit him up on that one and hit us on socials if you have a spare program going on that one. But thanks for joining, Keegan. This was never going to be an easy podcast given the result, but the future is bright. The future has Eddie Howe in it, and Newcastle United will come good once again. Thanks for your time, mate. I'll let you go and enjoy what's probably left of any turkey leftovers, and get those
bit of pork and chicken, bit of Big Bash tonight, mate.
Big Bash. Oh god, yeah. I'm not a cricket fan, as you know.
Yeah, cricket.
Me cricket for me. I'm going to go and demolish the rest of this turkey, and I've got some Southern Comfort to try and drown my sorrows in from the game as well.
Yes. Don't be scared to put some lemonade in it, mate.
Oh, I'm going hard. I'm going solo. So all in on me.
Southern Comfort lemonade, beautiful.
I'll give it a try one day. But again, thanks for everyone who has watched, who has listened. If you don't already, please subscribe to the channel on the YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on your audio platforms and give us a shout out on socials. And don't forget, Keegan is on the lookout for a program for this game we have just reviewed. Again, thanks, Keegan. We will see you on the next one, and good luck to the Mags at Anfield.
Up the Mags.
Up the Mags.
Wow.